My name is Bobby Jenkins, and I'm currently on the Higher Ed Coordinating Board. I'm a board member, and want to welcome you to this morning's session where we're going to have some great input and advice for service. I'm going to go ahead and introduce each of our panelists, and then each one of them will come up and give you some of their advice about service. We're going to be starting today with Mike McCullough. Mike McCullough is Senior Counsel with Thompson & Knight of Dallas. He focuses his practice on estate planning and probate law, fiduciary administration, federal income tax matters, charitable planning giving, and the representation of tax-exempt organizations, including private foundations. He is board certified in estate planning and probate law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. He's been a member and chair of the Board of Regents of the Texas Women's University since 2007. Mike holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Accounting from Baylor University and a Bachelor of Law from the University of Texas Law School. After Mike, Adela Garza will be our next presenter. Adela, who was elected to Texas Southmost College Board of Trustees in June 2008, grew up in Laredo and later moved with her husband to the lower Rio Grande Valley, where they have raised their family. Ms. Garza attended TSC in the 1980s and received a Bachelor of Arts and Science from the University of Texas Pan Am in 1987. Our last panelist will be Wallace Hall, Jr., who was appointed to a 6-year term on the University of Texas System Board of Regents by Governor Perry in 2011. He had previously served as a member of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board on the Committee of Strategic Planning and Policy and chair of the Committee on Agency Operations. Mr. Hall is founder and president of Wetlands Partners. He graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 1984 with a Bachelor of Arts and Economics. So each one of our panelists will come up, spend 7-8 minutes or so. Mary's got the timer right there, so let me forewarn you, she's very, very good about keeping us on schedule. So each one will give their a little bit of information and insight, and then after that, we should have some time for some good questions that hopefully be very valuable for you. So, Mike, if you'll go ahead and kick us off.
All right. We're going to start out and make this a little bit of fun. Top 7 things I wish I had known and perhaps you should know as a new governing board member. Number 7, complexity of funding in higher education. I was very surprised at how complex and closely guarded the funding is. I mean, in your business, if you bring in $1 over here, you can move it over here if it's needed. No, it's not so in higher education. Different sources of funds cannot be commingled. Example 1, they can only be used for designated purposes. General revenue appropriations cannot be used to support auxiliaries. Housing, sports, student unions can't use those funds for that. They're to be used for teaching. Example 2, HEAF money is a specific appropriation for capital improvements and library resources, but cannot pay faculty salaries. Well, if you're not confused yet, I was majored in accounting, and fund accounting was just not my strong suit. Another point here is that there are very strict guidelines on investing your funds. You can't just go out well, maybe you can, I don't know, but I always look to the officers there at Texas Women's University to tell me what we should and shouldn't be investing in. We have very strict policies that are mandated by state law. Number 6, the significant part that the Texas legislature plays in higher education. Number 1, the issue of tuition. The legislature first set tuition and restricted it and supported education. Then, now they've unrestricted tuition and say, well, we'll let the students pay more cost. But now we're hearing these suggestions that maybe we're going to have to freeze. Maybe we're going to have to freeze tuition. And by golly, we need to provide a $10,000 4-year degree. TWU is working on that very hard right now, but I will assure you that it's going to be difficult in the health care part of our programs where we have labs and we have other things. I mean, maybe we can go to the full, to go to all IT to get that done, but not yet. And I noticed also in the paper the other day that they're considering, or someone is considering, I won't say who, a penalty of 10% cut in your state support if your students don't graduate in 4 years. Well, these are things we learn, and I understand why we want to do it in 4 years, but many of the students at Texas Woman's University they work. So it's very difficult to get in 15 hours and then work. But these are all things that I'm sure we'll work out with the legislature, and the main thing is we don't want to sacrifice quality for our students. You know, the money is going down, so you ought to look in your booklet because we had a wonderful presentation by Steve Jordan, the president of the Metropolitan State University of Denver. You know, they're going to have a hotel to help them make money. I don't know if that would work in Denton or not. Some of my board members are here. But we have a golf course, and, you know, I like it because I play Army golf. And it left, right, and it's broad and open, so I can play left, right. But anyway, be innovative about it. The next thing about the legislature there are many unfunded mandates. An example, the Hazelwood exemption. I mean, it's clearly the right thing to provide free tuition and expenses for veterans. There's just no doubt about it. But the state doesn't give us any money for that. So, for instance, at TWU, the amount of exemptions have increased by 95.97% from 2010 to 2012. Fall 2010, it was $611,308. 2012, it was $1,197,988, and it's going up for 2013. I think all the university presidents are working on this and something that we can do, but certainly want to honor our veterans and their children if they are deceased or disabled. But it's just something you need to be aware of, which I wasn't when I became a board member. Secondly, something new is immunizations. There's new legislation requiring bacterial meningitis vaccinations for new and readmitted students. And that's another great thing, except that there's no money for it. So we had an unbudgeted expense at TW of over $50,000 to manage the communication and tracking required to be in compliance. And you have to do it before they get to school, so that to the university, so that was difficult. Number 5, each system or university has its own auditor to report to the board. Boy, was I glad about that. We've got only 2 people that we deal with, the president and the auditor. And I'm glad to have an auditor to report to me and do audits on. You cannot imagine what all they audit every year, but it's very helpful and makes you feel better as a governing board member. Number 4, it is very important to work with and, if necessary, hire or dismiss the chief executive. Thank goodness when I came on the board at TW, we have one of the most outstanding presidents and chancellors in Dr. Ann Stewart. She has brought Texas Woman's University along. When it started, it was only in Denton. Now it has a campus in Houston, has a campus in Dallas, and it has over 15,000 students. We're so thankful to her, but you'll enjoy working with your chief executive. Number 3, and I know you will, but you should try to be the best that you can be. And in that regard, try to attend all the meetings unless you're sick or you have some good excuse. Like I finally had to fix my football knee, and so I was out and missed a meeting, and they said, okay, that'll do. Since you've got an artificial knee, we'll let you skip it. Number 2, I have had the great pleasure of working for other regions with them at TW on significant issues. And I know that each of you will have this same enjoyment as you work with your other board members. And finally, the number 1 reason I wish I had known, and perhaps you should know as a governing board member, number 1, remember it is all for the students. Allow the students to receive a quality education. Participate in the graduation ceremonies. I guarantee you will be so happy you did. You may have stand up there a while shaking hands, and before I got the knee fixed, I nearly fell off the stage twice. But, I mean, and they, you know, I don't have anything to put around my neck like all these professors, so I just said, well, heck, I want to go anyway, because you just see the look on their face, and you hear the people in the crowd. It's like going to a ball game. They were so happy. So many of our students was the first person that had ever graduated from college, and I just think it's wonderful. And I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you very much.
I'm going to talk to you about being elected, because I know my colleagues are appointed. And why did I run for office? Knowing that you can make a difference is a great motivator. How can we not get involved? The reality is different, because when you are running for office, you actually get to visit with the community. And you listen to, let's call them stakeholders. Once you get elected, the problem begins, because you're not an individual. You have to function as a body. And that takes inviting your fellow trustees, some of which campaign against you, and you have to come and invite them to be part of your vision. But if you allow this to happen, if you give the other trustees and put the campaign behind you, you're going to find out that their vision is just like yours. You want the best for your community, for your district, and for the students. Second thing I'm going to talk about, once you get the whole board working together, some of those trustees have been there lots longer than you. You need to educate yourself. It's a tough act to follow once you get the attorneys here first, because you never, ever finish learning. And I can come to their session every year, and I've been here 3 years, and I learn something new every time. As a trustee, you're never done learning, and you have to continue that education. And I forget who said this quote, but if you think you're done learning, try to explain it to somebody. And if you cannot explain it to your child, to your husband, you're not done learning. And that happens. It's very comfortable, and I'm in my 4th year, and it's very comfortable to sit back and say, I've done that. But there's always something new, especially in education. Legislators have a lot of fun during their sessions, and for some reason, education comes up and they have to mess with it, and that's the word, mess. I'm sorry, Representative, I only say that. That is the truth. The third thing I want to talk to you about is the Open Meetings Act. And the attorneys touched on this, and it is so easy, especially in a small community like ours in our district. People have ideas and invite you to pitch their point. And they invite one trustee, and they invite another trustee, and they invite another trustee. They don't realize that they are creating a walking quorum for you. And if you decline, you don't want to be part of the solution. And if you accept, well, you're going to have to deal with the district attorney. So you have to be very, very cognizant of that. And in our board, and it has been our board has gone through some tremendous changes. And I challenge anybody to do the stuff that our board has done. We have gone through a separation with UT systems. Now, UT is a respectable system, and we've had our concerns. But when we campaigned, we heard the community say, we need our community college. We're selfish. We didn't want to let go of the university. But I think our board has been tested, and we have proven that we want the best for our students. I think if you just keep that in mind, that the students are your #1 priority, it will always work out. It will always work out. We're going to have a viable UT institution in our district, and we're looking forward to working with our new president, Lily Tercero, and the new board. And the board has changed. We have 100% of the board that is new. It has changed in the last 4 years. The board changed totally. And I am very, very happy to say we're working in unison. We want what's best for the district. And I think those are my 3 concerns. Work together with the board, educate yourself, and be very cognizant of the Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you to the coordinating board for putting on this event. I hope I don't turn this off by placing it on here. And I appreciate everybody being here, even though I know you're here because the law says you're going to be here, and that's why I'm speaking here as well. So I know you're as excited as I am. So I kind of look at this as what do I wish I had known, and some simple realities from what I've found in my time on the UT Board of Regents, as well as the coordinating board. I wished I had known to set some personal expectations for what my time on the board would involve, and what I expected to accomplish. All of us, we're not the first to join these boards with a goal to change the world to make an impact. But reality hits fast. Our organizations are typically not nimble. In fact, we're more like super tankers laden with oil, not responsive to the wheel or reverse thrust. In fact, everything on the surface can seem fine until you run aground, and then it's too late. So it takes time to affect change, and it takes a real plan, a real personal plan on what role you're going to play and how to make the change lasting, or else have you really accomplished anything. I found it's very, very important to read all the material that is provided to you by your staff. I should have learned it on my first service on the coordinating board. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it completely until I reached the Regents, and I made the mistake of inquiring of one of our institution heads in a public meeting about why hadn't they gone back and asked this donor to do this, that, and the other for the university. And they kind of looked at me, and I knew I'd made a mistake. I didn't know exactly what it was yet, but the donor had already given them billions of dollars, and I should have known, and I just didn't read that particular page, and I won't make that mistake again, and because it takes a long time to get your credibility back. So that's a big one. There's a massive amount of institutional knowledge that's maintained with a variety of very talented and dedicated people in your staffs. I mean, it is remarkable how much they know. They know where the problems are. They're waiting to be asked. You need to earn their confidence. They're assessing you on what kind of trustee or regent you're going to be. Are you really going to be there day to day? Or are you going to come in with a splash and make a bunch of pronouncements and then not show up again? Because they're waiting to see. In reality, we come, we're put on the board, we come, we listen, we talk, we vote, and then we roll off. So, and we roll off every couple of years, so the staff is looking to see what are we going to get this time. And so I encourage you to be a board member that really stays the course, because they're there and they want us to succeed. I did know, and it's become more apparent, this whole question on emails and everything else. I mean, it is amazing. The more you touch on a sensitive topic, the more somebody is going to want to see your emails. So to the extent you're trying to affect change, somebody out there is going to be working very hard to find out if there's something else that's not appropriate that's going on. And the press or whoever it is that does the open records request inevitably will take the absolute worst thing that you wrote and try to make you appear petty and vindictive and uninformed or even corrupt. They will have a difficult time unless you give them the tools to accomplish that. Mike, I appreciate your comments on the legislature, because it remains very mysterious to me. And so I'm still seeking some guidance from the UT system on exactly where what is it that is our prerogative, because our rules, the Regents' rules, are really statutes, are equivalent to statutes, and what is the legislative component, and how are we supposed to work together? Because I know the oath that I took was to the laws of the state of Texas and the United States, and to the people of Texas, and so it is a unusual area, and I appreciate that. I would also say that I would encourage everybody to share their opinions and their views with your fellow board members, because if you're not willing to do that, you might as well not go. That type of robust conversation helps us make better decisions, but it's very difficult. It's much more difficult than you may think it is to say no or to take an opposing position. I was told, I did not fact check this, but I took a no vote in my first few months on the Board of Regents, and I was told afterwards that it was the first no vote in 10 years. So, and I know that while we have 9-0 votes, I know that that's not the real feeling of our board members. I mean, there's a path there, but people are very reluctant to say no in public. So there's a lot of work in there, and I really encourage everyone to challenge the status quo. Many times you'll be sitting in a meeting and you will sit there and you will want to scream, "You have got to be kidding," or you'll want to laugh and you'll try to maintain your composure. I found that there are practices and policies and situations that are unique to the public world, and you got to learn to bite your tongue. It only takes one misguided quote or a line of inquiry before you're going to be labeled the nutball on the board, and it's almost impossible to get rid of it. So you want to be very careful about marginalizing your efforts. Open meetings laws, they are very challenging. I will confess. They make it very difficult, if not impossible, to have what I would characterize as a messy but constructive conversation about the issue at hand. It's just not likely that you're going to ask in the middle of the meeting, "Ma'am, how many, when was the last mass layoff you had of your FTE count?" That's not going to make you very popular. These things are not addressed in public. You don't find the same openness. It's in the open rule situation, but it is the law, and I would say that I found that 90%, even 95% of my efforts to, and you'll find the same thing, to move ideas and to make change and to learn takes place outside of the board meeting. The board meetings are more choreographed. It's where votes are taken. It's where the decisions are actually made. But the education phase for yourself and for you telling staff what you care about happens away from the board meeting by and large. And then the walking quorum, obviously. I mean, you kind of look for people and then you walk away. I mean, you spend your time not wanting to be in contact with them. I will say that there's many people out there who want to blame all kinds of people for the challenges that many of us all see in higher ed in particular. And, but what I've found and what I tell people is that at the end of the day, it's the voting members of these boards that have they're the only ones that have the vote. So we can say that it's this or we can say that it's that group, but at the end of the day, we're the only ones that have the vote, and we have a huge responsibility to exercise it wisely. And to the extent that we find that there's areas that we can improve upon, I mean, it's really up to us because nobody else can do it. So thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.